Peace. Welcome to this www.vibegarden.org Love Beams and Lo-Fi broadcast. We're going to be having a look into this strained energy between you and the person you have in mind, okay? This is a collective reading. It's a synchronized reading, so you're hearing this message when you need to hear this message. Doesn't necessarily have to be at the time that it was posted or recently after it was posted. This might be years later. So we're going to have a look at what is going on in this connection situation. So for some of you, it could be a relationship that's romantic. For others of you, it could be a friendship. It could be a family dynamic, a coworker. I'm going to include in this reading basically whatever comes up, and you will apply it to you by flexing your intuitive muscles to see how it actually aligns with the situation you're in. We're going to focus more on the advice, right, that is more so applicable, to all of you or to those of you in category, right? Some of the advice may vary depending on the kind of relationship that you have with the person that is experiencing strain at this time. At vibegarden.org, we like to make sure we're looking for solutions, so that will be included. With that said, let's begin. All right, so we have a crossroads spread. There are some things that have to transform in this connection. Sorry, let me move some of these things out of the way. There are some things that have to transform in this connection. There have been strains on the mind for over a decade regarding this connection. Some of you, it could be much longer. And if this is a person that came in 2 years ago, 6 years ago, or 9 years ago, they picked up on patterns because they fit the resonance for lessons that you are working out, that you must work out to get in alignment with your success, which it does look like due to evil eye or sabotage or just ill-meaning, ill-intended energies. You kept being held back, or your efforts were diminished, and sometimes verbally diminished, and sometimes it was just people really wanting to not see you succeed. And I'm very sorry to hear that. The activator card in this spread is the 8 of Spades. This is not cardology as a system that I'm using to read these cards, or cartomancy. I've been studying metaphysics since I was 12 years old, so there are different associations, elements, and the numerology, as well as the symbolism of the actual deck itself as an oracle that I incorporate into reading this playing card oracle. This is like literally, I bought it as a playing card oracle, that it comes with its own system, actually. But the 8 of Spades is speaking about wherever you are at right now on the deep etheric level. So this would be like between what they call the reptile brain and the mammalian brain, somewhere in that arena. Times in childhood where you felt closed off. Times around peers where you felt closed out. And sometimes it may have been, there may have been some rumor mill information. There may have been, your social judgment was off. You didn't speak the social language, and it was like you were penalized for that by the group. At the time of this recording, even though this is very much synchronized to when you listen to it at whatever point, whether it's now or in the future, Pluto is in Aquarius. Pluto's been in Aquarius for what is it like, and I mean sitting proper, like we're gonna be dealing with this for 20 plus years, right? We're not dealing with this, but having these Pluto in Aquarius experiences for the next 20 plus years. It's been in there now for about maybe almost 10 months sitting. It might be right around 10 months, come to think of it, considering the date today. But long story short, Pluto leaving the Capricorn energy and going into the Pluto energy is causing a rejuvenation of pathways. And when we talk about pathways, we have neurological pathways, we have pathways that manifest, right, as emanations into the interface of physical experience on the earth plane. Some of these things will come up in the dream realm. And I don't know if we want to look at this maybe as kind of it's like pathways that are designated for release experiences, but there are correlations with neural pathways and with the areas where you hold memory. And this also connects with the body, and impacts the body, because if there's a lot of dread, if there are heavy energies in those pathways, if there's not a lot of chi, to make it simple, those of you who are a little more familiarized with energetic healing, if the chi's not flowing in that area, this can attract stagnancy situations. This can make it hard to move towards your goals. It's this area in your system where energy is meant to flow throughout your system that the energies can't easily get past. So whatever is happening right now, you've begun to recognize these pathways, or you're beginning to recognize these pathways, and you don't like the feeling. You don't like it. You are moving more healthfully in looking towards the positive energy patterns. This may be because some of you are aware of this. You might have, read some self-care, self-love books, or tuned into content of some variation along these lines that's helped to remind you that the thoughts that you're holding have a lot to do with what manifests for you, and because it influences the resonance that you're on and what your auric body is emitting. With this being an 8 in the spade suit, there is an earth element and an air element. So this can speak to the physical conditions that you're experiencing at this time. Some of you may be in a situation where your needs are met. Some of you may have just arrived in a situation where your needs are met, and you have a confidence of the stability in whatever arrangement you're in with the universe, which is beautiful. But mentally, there could be some constraints around the energy that you have had a challenge with. And there could be kind of like, I guess I'll just say like areas in this energy that need to be oiled, where there needs to be more flow, where there should be more laughter. This situation of strain with this other person that you have in mind, I think has come up with at least 5 or 6 people who have impacted you in unhealthy ways, almost trying to leave you with a bag of toxicity and hoping you would question whether or not it's yours. And I think some of you got very confused in this energy. Bless y'all, because that is not fun. Your solar plexus chakra is healing because it literally has to come up for light now. So whatever aspect of this person you've been experiencing strains with energy, whatever aspect of that connection has shifted, and it should have shifted like five years ago. For some of y'all, it could be a span of 5 to 20 years. This should have been shifted. But I think there was aspects of guilt that were weaponized. And just not in a cute way either, because I think someone was being semi-intentionally cruel, right, to make themselves feel better, make themselves feel powerful, or make themselves feel like they've made you pay in some kind of way. They are, although I don't believe they would be comfortable sharing with you from that space within themselves that they know they were wrong for that. Whatever it is they've done, they know they're wrong for it. But there's a set of habit patterns based in a lot of verbal abuse that they may have endured, where their minds shut down and there's some sharpening of a blade energy. You know what I'm saying? And socially, by the way, this is not to make excuses. This is for added insight into what's going on here, right? But there's a sharpening of the blade energy where it was social survival. And I think that they've been riding the waves of social survival since they were very, very little. Some of it may have been because of directly harmful or traumatizing situations. And not all situations are going to immediately be like severely traumatic. It really can be an interruption in a constant sort of energy, interruptions in perception of stability to whatever degree. And then that can get compounded, right? If this particular soul is emitting a worry, right, or an anxiety that's going to happen again, and then, oh boy, now we have a cycle, right? You've been dealing with some sort of mental emotional captivity in regards to this person. And this week, whenever you're tuning in, this applies to you because the universe is very, there's a lot of synchronicity to keep this thing running. It's miraculous and very much on point, very precise. So this is reaching you and you're listening this week. All of it is going into a dissolve. So this dissolve is essentially meaning the projections can no longer hold on to the pathways, and the perceptions connected to the projections are shorting out, so to speak, right? Even the ability to project from that place is coming under the lens for the person, and in some cases, some cases, I'll just say, instead of giving percentages, there could be 2 or 3 people. It could be more than one person. But I think there's a ringleader, and that's mainly who's being discussed today. There's a main person who inflicted wounds and then would come back to do so, on a repetition. Sometimes a repetition cycle of patterns, or sometimes unknowingly you might have thought, oh, whatever that storm was that's happened this number of times, maybe it's over now. You might have just come back and opened yourself up to it again, when it might have been safer to follow your instincts and your gut, because I think your gut has been screaming for a long time in regards to this. But your gut at this point is rolling up the sleeves and taking the situation, you know what I'm saying? It's like you're taking the situation into your own hands from the gut level. This feeling of captivity you can no longer stand. You're beginning to look out at the world and look out at what is possible for you and what you should be receiving, and why are there these delays, and why is there this really yuck energy, right? I'm not saying this is affecting every single aspect of your life, but wherever this is presenting a strain in your life in connection with this person, it's going into a dissolve. There are archangels around this, Archangel Michael and Archangel Gabriel. So your will and communication are receiving an upgrade, we'll say. In the area of manifest emanation, this is a rite of passage. You have the 4 of clubs showing up here. So this rite of passage energy is helping you really to level up in your consciousness. And this really can be quite accelerated. Like within the next 5 months, people who used to maybe think they had a clear perception of you might be like, well, I don't know if I know who this person is. I think, of course, very much you'll be who you are, but I think it would be like, wow, like you got a real boost, didn't you? You're vital, you're vibrant, your energy feels good. This is different than before, because I do think there's an aspect of you no longer, and it feels like it's by necessity, emotional necessity, physical necessity, whatever have you. I think, mental necessity, perhaps all of the above. Playing yourself small, like you're done with that lesson. Like you left the class. You might have left the class like, who enrolled me in this class again? Somebody told me to come to this class and turned around and left. Like I'm not doing this class again. So where you're at now, there's a lot of reflection on yourself from a root chakra level. Root chakra situations can very much touch on identity and your inclusion within the group that you incarnated into. If you've been having problems with this, and I do think some of you have on and off had problems with black sheep stuff, within families, rumor mill situations, backstabbing friends. I'm so sorry that y'all went through this. But where you are now, you're seeing the light. You're beginning to wake up in the experience, and you're realizing this is crazy. And this is helping you to develop a confidence with yourself, to come into an alignment with yourself and realize you can trust your gut. And in some ways you must now, so that you're not being taken for a ride by anyone, so that you're not under anyone else's compulsion of will, right? And I think the big thing here is perceptual challenges were the problem. More than the solar plexus chakra, perceptual challenges were the problem in this dynamic. And now that your lens is healing, your lens of perception is healing and upgrading, you're beginning to see, oh man, I was coming around, maybe more often that was healthy for you, or just in some situations you shouldn't have done it at all, around people who are very deeply wounded and will turn on you and will act like you're bugging if you feel a way about it. You may not fully comprehend the dynamic here in terms of like how to approach it. I think you're just going purely on instinct and ancestral intervention of nurturing and securing you upon the earth plane, and where needed, although I don't really think it's needed that much. I think there's been a lot of guardianship in the past. I don't really think you need it, but there could be some guardianship, but I just don't think there's anything like super dangerous, speaking plainly, on your pathways. So the guardianship aspect, it's more guidance and reminders of self-care that are coming in at this time, because like that's the area where you've been in deficit. That's the area of imbalance. And there's an aspect of it must be addressed, needing to be addressed. Some of you might be coming out with a book. It might be part story, part program for self-improvement, or part methods for self-improvement. I think it's going to do very well. So I encourage you to, move forward, especially books that will help young people, 20 years or younger, or if they are in their 20s, like kind of no older than 27. There's something about that particular group really, really needing to be poured into and to receive support rather than find themselves being projected upon. And Archangel Michael is at the head of this. There's work being done to clear those pathways, because there's been this weird generational thing. I may have to pause because I think we have someone mowing the lawn with an earshot, but there's this generational thing that's been happening, and there are measures to come in and put a stop to it, because there are individuals in these generations, and to try to lump generations all into certain energy sounds a lot like scapegoating to me. It doesn't serve the collective positively. It causes people to retract with fear, or to live in their head off of assumptions instead of actually interacting with people and seeing what they're getting individual to individual. So this rite of passage is really you letting your hair down symbolically. This is you living your life for you. This is you living your life beyond opinions and criticisms that you are done listening to, because I think there's been bad advice for some of you, really bad advice, some of it intentionally sabotaging, I'm sorry to say, in the strain with this particular person that you have in mind. And I think there's a time limit. We've arrived at a time limit, because you have for that person to just project toxicity at you. Some of this was it may not seem rapid, but it was to accelerate you. Some of you may be very very empathic, very earth angelic, could be a starseed, and you didn't really comprehend certain ways in the world. And this dynamic helped to wisen you to how far away people can move from, I guess, collective accord and universal consciousness, and be operating like in the reverse of what is good for a connection, while pretending they're operating in the best interest, or in a good interest, for the connection. And so this has been super, super confusing for you, because you tend to know what you want to get out of a connection, and what you want to give, and to you it's just kind of more so straightforward that people should do right by each other, and they can communicate if something comes up that's not right. But you're dealing with a manipulator in this strain. Whoever it is you are focusing on, this person has learned to manipulate to survive. And so this means that there's a deep trauma belief that they won't get attention if they don't do that they'll be abused or projected upon if they don't do that. They're very afraid to sit in their own energy, very afraid to be in a relaxed state. The traumatized part of them was brought to a level of excitation where it really feels, I'm not going to say they don't go into that emotional aspect of self anymore, but it just feels like they don't go there anymore, and they kind of live on their nerves, and they live, I would say for the moment, but unfortunately they bring the shadow with them nearly every time. And there have been a lot of mask slips in the past year. So this red Joker energy next to the 4 of clubs is revealing that in this expansion energy, because that's where the card fell, this is like a restart to your life. This connection happened so you will break up with codependency, so that you will realize where the lines are and assert them gracefully or assertively if you must. There's an aspect of you collecting your just due, collecting what's yours. Some of this could be ancestral rights. Some of it could be pathways that belong to you away from whomever is this person, right? Their siphoning of energy. So there may be a lot of cord cutting taking place. You can call on Archangel Raphael for this specifically, in areas around the root chakra going all the way to the feet. If you're requiring assistance in cutting cords, repairing those pathways, and having peace of mind, if there's regeneration that needs to take place there, or building that needs to take place there, if you need more support in your resolve in these pathways, I'm seeing like a silver wolf is coming up. I feel like there's an aspect of being calm, graceful, serene, as there's a dissolve of what can no longer be. And this may, for some of you, that we could be talking like chunks of time, like 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, where there are changes taking place in the dynamic that affect the root chakra and the crown. So it's affecting it's like physical changes that actually have rejuvenating impacts to the line, but like super boost perception, like bring the perception way up. And there's a huge emphasis on moving away from those who draw energy, and that's like almost, I'm not trying to be like dramatic, but almost like 100% of what they do, because like that's where they are in their mentality right now. You are no longer being permitted by the universe to be a battery for this person. So how about that? If you thought, oh, this is my idea and I don't know if I'm being negative, because sometimes when we've dealt with emotional manipulators, like these sorts of thoughts can come up, and it's like you weren't wrong in the first place. Right? But it's very hard to see that in a connection with someone who is weaving an illusion or projecting, and then trying to make it seem like there's something wrong with your logic process, or trying to make it seem like you can't trust your own gut, or you don't know what you're talking about, or always criticizing you. But this sort of thing only lasts for so long. I've heard even with like the MK Ultra program or whatever, like it only lasts for so long. Mind control, like the people will come out of mind control. And I feel like that's what you're doing. But I think you're also analyzing the process of what you've been through. And I think that's super healthy. Some of you might be releasing a journal that helps others to recollect the pieces of themselves. So blessings upon it, because I think that could be a journal line. A bunch of people can start to release journals like that, because we all have specialized, unique methods of what worked for us. And I think this could do a lot of favors, especially for those who are 27 or under, or maybe at the very latest, like 28. It could help others, but I'm just saying, like, I think there are some folks that are really requiring this sort of help and this sort of guidance right now. I think you would have a way of doing it that it's different than what others have done. And I think it would just hit home in a way where it's really well received. It's one thing to, write a book, right? It's another thing to write something that someone comes back and refers to, or hugs close to their heart, or puts under their pillow at night, because this is literally helping them through a very, very hard time, and they found it, and like this is making a difference for them. Like that is quite an accomplishment in my view. The blue joker is next to the red joker, and that is the shift energy. So there's a huge mental shift taking place this week. And today, depending upon how you approach today, you may be feeling, and when I say this week, this is synchronized with when you listen to it, and we're talking about for you, and possibly like your family line, certain aspects of the family line that have been more so lost or deprived, or have things to work through, to open up pathways and clear through blockages. There can be moments of wanting to cry. There could be old moments of just having dealt with abuse, and God bless you. Like this, you're going to heal, and there is support available to you. There are guardians, well, I should say guides, but they are guardians too, but it's more so a nurturing energy around you. Pardon me, I had to pause as there is mowing and landscaping going on in the background. I do appreciate your patience with that. I hope that's not disturbing your experience with the reading. But this Joker energy is a mental shift energy. This is really like you are so determined. So if you're like, why was this so, if you're thinking to yourself, why was this all so hard? Some of you, it's been 8 years like of mostly toil. This is so that you could develop the strength to overcome this and what this was going to continue to bring in your pathways in the form of people, in the form of the sorts of individuals you attract, where the social experience is actually warfare, but they're gaslighting you, and even possibly gaslighting themselves, some of them, because they just don't want to be a part of the moment. You know what I'm saying? Of what's really going on in the moment. They don't want to acknowledge what they're doing, but there's some aspect of them that's looking for a charge of energy off the next person. It's looking for a villain, and maybe a statement triggered them. It's really a hyper attack type of energy. And you are done with it. Congratulations. The Queen of Spades shows up with the 10 of Spades. This is going into the record books akashically as what you will notice in people you may or may not encounter, right? Like, you may get a nice break, some of you, from a good amount of you, from these sorts of people for at least 2 to 3 years so that you can heal. Some of you will make that happen, but this isn't, you will be able to read this on people essentially, and you will know what to do. You will know if it's time to shorten the conversation. You might sense them before you even exchange words. You will have the time to form in your mind your exit statement, or the strength you need to say, oh, I'm in a rush. How you doing? Hope you're having a good one, and keep it moving, because some of these people will latch onto you etherically and try to hold on to you and draw energy from you, bring you into a conversation, that sort of thing. And this is what the universe is going to be assisting you in your vigilance to keep off of your path. Because this has been stealing energy from you with whomever's come up in this sort of energy. There are so many cords being cut. This is generational. Some of you have dealt with this from both older generations and generations younger than you. Really mastering certain aspects of the middle path. But now that you've achieved balance, it's now time for you to be, it's giving like Field of Reeds energy, in a heart aligned, higher heart aligned symbolism of vibration. The vibration that will be coming in more and more to surround you. I'm seeing a lot of gold. It looks like antique gold. I'm seeing care from people themselves who have gone through situations like this, got out of situations, and made good on their path, who know how to avert these situations, who know how to do so gracefully, and who also know how to heal, know the importance of self-reflection to the degree that you're ready, but continuing to relieve yourself of burdens energetically that don't belong to you, because you're coming up to a much higher level. This is a beyond 7D level, and to anchor for your light anchors, for your light to anchor, And this essentially means people who have resorted to emotional manipulation, it's time for them to see themselves, to see how they attack others, repel others, to see that the tricks that they might use to try to make the other person the villain no longer work, because too many people in the world see these tactics. And so this is a healing crisis for them. And it's going to be up to them to figure out what they're going to do, because they can no longer latch on to others for life force. They have to generate their own. And that's good news. You know what I'm saying? We are 30 minutes in, and I don't want to keep this going on too long. I just wanted to make sure I'm bringing in some helpful messages, because this may be a strained energy. Even separating from this person may be strained. There really could be angst and irritation energy, and it's valid. Own your feelings. But I feel like the healthier ways to deal with this may be like physical activity, listening to music, living your life, getting more into the living aspect, solar plexus on upwards. This is not to say ignore your emotions. This is to say transmute them through higher actions. Verbally affirm your right to be well. Verbally affirm your right to be able to connect with others in a harmonious accord. If you're coming in with harmonious accord and you're following through with the harmonious energies, that you have the right, literally with how things work, to align with other people who have the same intentions. A lot of you were too young to avoid this sort of a strained experience pattern of emotional manipulation, gaslighting, and projection. And yes, it's going to take some time to heal, but you have a lot of divine help, and it's just really time. Release what hurts. Release what hurts. And allow what comes back to nurture you, to the degree that you're ready more and more to do so. Allow yourself to be nurtured, because where you're headed in this energy is success energy. You're headed into energies where you are ready for the opportunities that appear for you. You deliver very well, and you are compensated appropriately. In equal measure to how much work that went into your expertise and into the delivery of what people are receiving from you. And a lot of this will be financial, but one way or another, you're going to get back commensurately the good that you have put out. Really, for all of you, since you got here on this earth. For those of you who are dealing with Syrian energy, there may have been a lot of emotional pain to process, but some of this was to get you into an independent position, because some of the family dynamics, group dynamics, friends dynamics you found yourself in were very entrenched. These were dynamics that were very much, it almost seemed like you could not be okay, like codependent, or interdependent, like you could not be okay if you were not performing a certain role within that group. But all of this pain you went through was to give you the strength you require to actually be on your own at times when you must, and others in this group are also being encouraged to do so, because there is going to be a distancing of how much energy can be drawn off of each other, because it's become unhealthy for the larger collective. We have a fractal dynamic that goes on with collective consciousness, and if something's becoming too unhealthy, then measures have to be taken to correct that, so that more copies of this sort of energy and these sorts of mindsets and problems don't begin to pop up around the collective, because we deal with resonance-based things. If you're in a very low vibrating environment, you could be a very high vibrating person, but by resonance alone, you could find yourself having to fend off characteristics trying to become a part of what you do, because you have been subjected to a resonance for so long. So resonance it's just one of those things where it's important to be mindful of what and whom you subject yourself to. I feel like getting aligned with a lot of universal love energy is going to be important to you for the next 3 years. Seek what is positive. It doesn't have to be in a rose-colored glasses way, and it definitely doesn't have to be in a gaslit sort of way. You don't have to deal with people who are feeling like they have to very much wear a mask or kind of be in a phoniness to hide predatory desires and intentions. what you can do is find where the good energy is and celebrate being yourself, because you exist for a reason, and you are a beloved child of the universe. You're always going to be loved. And if you did not learn that where we would typically think you should have in early childhood, you have been learning that for the past 11 years on and off with various people. So even if it wasn't seeming like a fully constant energy, the universe did align you little by little with what you needed, so that you could eventually align with those who you're supposed to be aligned with. And these are mutually supportive, benevolent, loving people who earn their way, have integrity, observe boundaries, but also know how to kind of make light of things and make jokes instead of things coming into unnecessary bones of contention, higher order relationships. And at the time of this recording, Uranus is in the sign of Gemini. There is this aspect of coming up to a higher mind and higher logic, and it is needed in society. And we could all see that, I would say. So the 9 of Diamonds is the reward here. Whatever the strain was with this person, it was trying to keep you from being independent. It was trying to keep you from thinking on your own. This has to do with this own person's fear of being abandoned, deserted. Some jealousy could be in it as well. There could be like vanity problems with this person. And I feel like you're going to be much better off limiting contact. Limiting contact. Some of this is like if you have to see this person holidays, if you check in every now with texts to the degree that you feel it's safe. Really follow your heart, your gut with this, because what's important is that you are not set back into any energy, because I think at this point you could come out kind of energetically swinging, like you're not going to play these games anymore, and you just don't really need unnecessarily unsavory scenes popping up. You know what I'm saying? Long story short, you have the 3 of Wands. It's an ambition card, and that's coming up as the higher altitude mindset that's coming into bear. For maybe 30% of you, you've had this before where you were almost hyper ambitious. That's coming back, but it's more balanced. It's coming back in a more balanced way. You haven't lost anything. Some of it needed to rest. Some of it was overheating. Some of it wasn't getting enough light, so it needed to go rest, rejuvenate in higher sanctuaries, higher dimensional levels in the inner planes. All in all, you've been wizened by this experience, and I feel like it's going to be important for you to pay attention to your sacral chakra, your solar plexus chakra, and your heart chakra. Very, very important to pay attention to these areas. And I think where the throat chakra is concerned, being comfortable in silence, being not silence where you're allowing yourself to be minimized or you're making yourself smaller, but being comfortable in silence of when some things are like really not worth a retort. Silence is golden. Some people might be trying to attack and you don't respond, and now the last thing they heard came out of their own mouth, and they have to look at what they just said and be aware that they're the ones being toxic. I think this is unfortunately this is quite strained, and it is toxic. I think a lot of you have done a lot of work to make it less toxic, but please be aware that's your energy that made it like thus toxic. Any efforts this person made had a lot to do with when I say saving face, had a lot to do with needing to appear a certain way, not wanting to look at actions they've done, not wanting to admit to actions they've done, and just kind of floating around, avoiding conflict, even though they've started a number of fires. And there's an aspect of this of needing to feel like it's not them, or it's the other people, or they wouldn't be this way if it wasn't for the other people. It's which sounds like abuser type stuff, but this is not someone that if you tried to say they were an abuser, they would probably come out so hostile and so vicious, or they would want revenge. So even if they went in the cool spirited way, it would click on something where they'd want revenge, because the fact of the matter is it's almost like there's an aspect for some of them where they've been moving this way to avoid a psychological break. And sometimes it can cause a person to be in a very hostile, vicious place. So take your space with this, y'all. I hope you found this helpful. You have the 9 of Clubs as the overall energy. And I feel like what was supposed to come to you is going to be coming quickly. Rewards that were put away for a better time, a lot of it really will be coming in very quickly in spurts, right? Some of it unexpected, some of it expected, because it's just order of course. You provided a service, you're to be paid. But there are new roads that are built on light roads that you've put rather a lot of work into since you got here. And for most of you, there are past life roads. They're very high harmonic, and you also have access to them. So you're going to be dealing with a lot more of the mid-higher astral and higher astral. For a small percentage of you, higher astral, really high up there, because you're on earth angelic missions. But this essentially is a time of expansion in your life, where you finally get to show up and be seen appropriately without the projections, where you're neither scapegoat or treated as invisible, so others can feel better about themselves or not deal with their own, issues. Yeah. The false villains, right? People who aren't really villains are being safeguarded. And the people who've pretended to be the victims or overuse the concept of someone being a villain towards them are being checked. It's giving, well, not me say it's giving, like it's coming through as checkmate. All right. I hope that you found this helpful, y'all. I'm going to close out. That 9 of Clubs energy may be with you for the next 4 days. So I would recommend sea salt baths. I would recommend cinnamon tea. Cinnamon tea can really help you to clear your mind. It brings in, it's a fire herb elementally. It'll bring in that vitality energy you might feel like you need right now, especially on a head level. There could be some sluggishness perhaps on the body level, but there's an energy of it starting with the head. So get some vitality and go get that cinnamon tea going, or add a little cinnamon to a lemon and sea salt bath, or a sage and sea salt bath, right? So you could add a little cinnamon to either of those variations. And with that sort of herbal bath, your aura gets assistance from plant elders. I feel like cinnamon can help you out a great deal. I feel like sage can help you out a great deal with this. I hope you found it helpful, y'all. It's looking really good. It's looking like reward-wise, you are in alignment with stability. Whoever's been trying to draw from what you're supposed to have, they are falling away and crashing out, and that's it. And those cords are being cut, and that's it. So the time of turmoil has concluded, and it is okay to heal, as you should. But try to remember to be letting in the light, okay? And be very careful with this person, because this person, if I may go into this deeper in a future reading, but we're already like almost 44 minutes in. This person large lesson with this person was to teach you to show up for yourself, and you are. So there's no longer a need for this dynamic to persist in this way. All right. I hope you found this helpful, y'all. You can visit me at www.vibegarden.org. We have all sorts of things going on there. We have a membership that includes deep discounts. At tier 1 starts out at $1.11 a month. We also have tier 2 where we have a moon magnetics group, and we work on our magnetics, and there are monthly reports that come out every month that tell you how to work based on your your earth elemental moon or your air elemental moon, so on and so forth. It helps you to navigate how you move in the area of your magnetics. And we have a spiritual coaching tier, which is tier 3. So you can go check that out on www.vibegarden.org. Make sure to include all 3 W's when you're typing that in to your browser or your URL bar. Because sometimes, I guess it's a device thing, like some devices were not registering it if you put vibegarden.org instead of www.vibegarden.org. Session information is available through the shop there, as is the Healing with Angel Sigils book, which is a very powerful book. I thank you so much for tuning in, y'all. Stay excellent. Peace.